This is episode number 38 of the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast with our special guest, Aaron Hinde, president and co-founder of Life Aid Beverage Company. Welcome to the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast. My name is Jeff Thornton, alongside my co-host, Michael Anders. Each week, we bring you an inspiring person or message related to our three pillars of success: manifestation, business, fitness, and nutrition. Our intent is to enrich, educate, and empower our audience to take action, control, and accountability for their decisions. Thank you for allowing us to join you on your journey. Now let's get started. We would like to thank our sponsor, Fit Aid. If you're serious about your performance and recovery, go with Fit Aid. Fit Aid is the perfect pre- and post-workout supplement product. If you're dragging pre-workout, Fit Aid contains natural ingredients to give you that boost and pick-me-up you need without the jittery effect. And if you're looking for recovery after your workout, Fit Aid has branched chain amino acids or BCAAs, L-glutamine, L-arginine, vitamin C and D3, glucosamine, turmeric, CoQ10, and raw organic agave to accommodate the glycogen window and provide your body with a complete and clean recovery. Be sure to give them a try at lifeaidbevco.com, your local gym, or a grocery store near you.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 38 of the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast. Mike Anders here with my co-host, Jeff Thornton, and today we've got the extreme pleasure of having Aaron Hinde with us, owner of Life Aid Bev Co. As most people know you, the owner and creator of Fit Aid. What's going on, man? Thank you for joining us today.
Mike, Jeff, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, brother. It's nice to have you on. Heard a lot of great things about you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so Jeff and Aaron and I met last year at the Barbell Mastermind with Mike Bledsoe, Doug Larson, Chris, and it was an awesome meeting of the minds, and it was life-changing for me and my business. And I had the opportunity to sit down with Aaron at one of our breakout sessions, and he really got me hip to game as far as what a quality referral program actually looks like, and gave me some action items to implement immediately as a result of the mastermind. And so I want to extend a personal thank you to what your guidance has given me and my business in the last year. But on top of that, you've got quite the story yourself, man. You made a very critical move some years ago when you dropped your practice as a chiropractor to move into to launch Life Aid and the Fit Aid project. So for those of the folks listening right now that don't know who you are and what you got going on, can you kind of give us the cliff notes of your story and your evolution to where you're at right now?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Appreciate it. And as you know, I value our relationship. And I was immediately attracted to you when we first met because I could tell you were an implementer, someone that didn't just look at things and theoretically, but took action. So congrats on you and your success. And this podcast this is awesome, you guys. But
Thanks, man.
I mean, I've been a serial entrepreneur, I would say, from the earliest days, and had some interesting businesses, some of which didn't really work out. But I think, as any entrepreneur knows, it's not something that happens overnight, and everything's a learning process. So learned a lot over the years, and I was a kind of very successful solopreneur 5 years ago. For 10 years, I owned my own sports chiropractic clinic here in Santa Cruz County. That's what really got me introduced to CrossFit, because I was actually in Scotts Valley, where CrossFit headquarters is at, the media headquarters, and used to see some of the higher ups there. And then they started sending in some of the athletes, and so I started, stepped into my first CrossFit gym, CrossFit North Santa Cruz, in probably 2004 or 5, something like that.
Wow.
So a few years ago, and that's where I ended up meeting Orion, my business partner, at Life Aid here, and we used to have some free time on our hands, so we'd golf a little bit, once a week, and Orion's an accomplished house DJ. I love house music, so we started going to Burning Man together, And that's really what sparked it all. We had a very personal relationship, and with my background in kind of sports nutrition, his background on the financial side, we really made a great team. And we launched Life Aid. What people see today and Fit Aid and the Life Aid line is quite different than how it all started. It actually started out as a supplement company and then evolved to a beverage company, and even from an artwork perspective and everything, it's really evolved. And I think that's one of the keys as an entrepreneur in each of our journeys is that not that we're always making the right decisions, but we're constantly moving forward. And that's been big for us over the last 5 years now that we've been evolving and moving forward and really playing the long game and focused on the long game, and it's finally paying off.
That's awesome. What was it to make the transition for you from a supplement company to a beverage company? Was there something that you saw in that niche?
Yeah, I'm 41 now, so I grew up in like the no-dose days. If you guys know what no-dose are, these little like energy pills people used to take to stay awake half the night if you had to study for a test or something. Well, I saw the launch of energy drinks and the evolution there, and we thought if supplements in pill form, kind of pre-packaged, condition-specific supplements in pill form were the way to go, then No-Dose would be $1 billion company and Red Bull wouldn't exist. And we all know that it's the exact opposite. People were attracted to the lifestyle branding associated with Red Bull. So we knew that beverages were more congruent with lifestyle, where supplements in pill form are just strictly functional. So we wanted to be functional and lifestyle driven.
Nice. That's pretty insightful to make that commitment. But back up a little bit. What was the catalyst for you to drop your successful practice and move into the beverage space?
Ignorance. Oh man, I was making really good money and didn't realize how good I really had it as a solopreneur. I mean, I averaged about 25 hours a week of actual time in the practice. I took every Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. I didn't have 1 year in 10 years where I grossed under $350,000. So it was a sweet setup, even by really any standards. Sure. But I was always driven that, I was attracted to something bigger, something more. I mean, in my whole career as a chiropractor, I probably treated 5,000 patients in those 10 years. But, now we're affecting millions of people every month in a positive way. So, part of that was part of my journey. I needed that experience in how to run a successful small business, how to build a referral-based business, how to directly communicate one-to-one with my customers to make this transition and help make this company successful. So there's nothing that I've had successes, like I said, failure, even the failures where, I haven't learned and moved forward, and they were all necessary in my journey, and I'll have many more challenges to come that will continue to progress my evolution as a business person and an entrepreneur.
It's interesting that your timeline is in 10, just as of late, a 10 and a 5-year increment. They say that it takes 10 years to have an overnight success.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of where you guys are at now. If I'm not mistaken, you guys have doubled in revenue the last 3 years. I've doubled every year over the last 3 years.
Yeah, we've pretty much doubled or come real close to doubling every year since inception. And some years quite a few more times, and we've tripled or quadrupled. But so we're in that rapid stage growth, phase. I think a couple core tenets to that. It's interesting when I'm speaking with my mentors or successful entrepreneurs. I think there's certain tenets that all successful people know that are true but aren't really talked about because they're just truisms, but it may not be totally apparent to someone just starting out or someone that's been struggling. The number one thing is that you must have a completely kick-ass product or service. Like, you can't be delivering mediocre training or mediocre programming or mediocre online products or physical products or whatever it is you're selling. If it's mediocre, the world is too small. I mean, there's review sites, there's all this going on, all this constant feedback that we're getting on products and services, that the ones that are shitty just aren't going to make it. So, tenet number one is, if your product or service is not, head over heels better than the competition, like, you shouldn't be getting into it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd say that's, truism number one. Number two, how you do anything is how you do everything. So many people think, and I'm still learning this, but, you're going to bring your A game to a certain aspect to your business, but in another aspect, it's falling apart. You're dominating business, but your home life sucks, or your home life's great, but you're stuck at a dead-end job, or you're not progressing spiritually, or whatever it is. I mean, one realization I think I've had over this last year is you can be kick-ass in all aspects of your life. Like, nothing's holding you back from achieving that. It doesn't have to be one-sided. It doesn't have to be, quote-unquote, out of balance. You can dominate every aspect of life, and I think that's what we were, created to do. We were created to have that approach to all aspects, yet too often, we put only focus in one area of our life and let other areas slip.
Right. So to that point, how do you, what are some of the mechanisms that you have in place that keep you in balance? Like, is it a time management thing predominantly, or like, where do you prioritize things so that you have that balance across the board between business, family, and personal time? Yeah.
Well, the main thing that keeps me in balance is my wife, because if I get too out of balance, she lets me know. But the key to not having that talk that the guys out there would know that I'm talking about, that are entrepreneurial, because I'm sure we've all had it at one point or another. Part of it, the biggest part, is being present. Like, when you are present in the moment on what's going on, it doesn't matter if you're spending 5 or 10 minutes a day with your kids versus 2-3 hours a day. It depends on what the intention is with that time. How connected are you with that individual? Because look, the bottom line is, life is about relationships, and those relationships are being nurtured by being in tune and attentive to what's coming out of that person's mouth, to their body language, to their energy, and letting your innate intelligence take over and develop and nurture those relationships. We call it here at Life Aid, making deposits to the emotional bank account. As long as you're consistently making deposits to those emotional bank accounts, you can afford to make a withdrawal once in a while, and it's still okay. You still have a very positive balance, right? But if we're not making those deposits and then we start having some withdrawals, we get in trouble. So, making sure every emotional bank account has more deposits than withdrawals, and that's relevant to personal and spiritual and professional and so on and so forth. And I think also the other important thing is always play the long game in all of those aspects of life. Don't think short-sighted. Play the long game, because even if you die tomorrow, playing the long game still yields better results in the short term than anything. So always play the long game. And too many, especially entrepreneurs, when you're young and naive and short on cash, it may be easy to be tempted by taking shortcuts, but that's never the way to do it.
Sure, man. It's a very interesting point that you brought up, because you express the quality over quantity, because I think too many people, especially in the entrepreneurial space, or when you're pursuing something greater than what you currently have, equate balance to time served. So as opposed to the quality of the time that you actually have in one aspect versus the rest of them. So too many people express being out of balance because they're at work, 8 to 16 hours a day and only home for dinner and then going straight to bed with their family. And they consider themselves out of balance because of the lopsidedness of the hours at work versus the hours at home, when in actuality, if you have like a quality 5 to 10 minutes at home with your spouse and your kids or whatever, going back to the intent of it all, that's where the power is. And that's where you're able to, in a minimal amount of time, make a huge emotional deposit into that bank account that you were just talking about. And at the same time, even though you're not home the majority of the day, you're still getting the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak, in the other aspects of your life while you're committed to making things happen on the business side.
Yeah, and the consequences of not being present in the time that is allotted has negative byproducts, in as much as then when you're at work for that 14, 15, 16 hours, instead of being present for your clients or your business and crushing that, all you're thinking about is how you're a total F up at home and how you should be at home more, right? And right. So now you're disservicing two areas, not just one.
Right. How long did it take you to figure that out? Because I know for me personally, when I opened the gym, I had to get a coach to help me figure out that those two things, the time versus the quality spent, they're not synonymous. And if you focus on the quality of time spent, it far outweighs the time, Right. So how long did it take you to figure that out?
I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
That's the truth. It's like, I don't have all the answers. I mean, I see a lot of the answers with clarity. I think, any part of truly transforming or evolving to, our next state of being and awareness has to do with understanding things, kind of mentally processing, understanding that, that sounds like that is a truism, and then talking about it, having it become part of your vocabulary, and then taking action upon it, right? And then when you take action upon it long enough and it yields results, it becomes very visceral. And then you just know it to be true, and it's just how you do things. Like I do things today, like what that looks like is much different than 5 years or 10 years ago. From how I wake up, how I start my morning, what that morning ritual looks like, how I approach people with abundance instead of scarcity. My attitude, my mindset, my recognition that everything is happening for a reason. Everything that I say or do or that happens in my life is steering me, or pulling me, I should say, to make a right turn instead of a left, and that has eternal consequences as a result. So being much more in tune and open to what is my calling, what am I here for, and let me be true to that. And when I'm true to that, I don't have stress in my life. There's not resistance. When I'm fighting what I know to be right for myself and for my path, that causes resistance. That causes, a lot of gray hairs. Like you can see, I've got some war wounds from right here, and it causes undue stress.
And I know you mentioned your wife is one of your support systems that you use in life. Starting out early in your business, did you find value in surrounding yourself with mentors or a positive network to sort of bounce those ideas off of as you're initially getting everything going?
It's essential. It's necessary. It's essential. I don't know of anyone, that I would consider successful that doesn't have mentors. Not one person. I talked about a little bit this evolution that happens, in all of us at the different aspects and stages of our life, from personally, professionally, and spiritually, and physically, and so on and so forth. I mean, CrossFit's a great example of that. It can take, someone in their worst physical condition and put them in their best physical condition in a very short amount of time. It's powerful. So, having mentors, I think what attracts us to any given mentor at any stage of our life is they are a living, breathing example of that next evolution of where we know we need to go, right? And so there's no better way to get to that than see how people that are already there are living.
True.
And at the same time, I think we have an obligation to be reaching behind us at people that aren't quite as along the progression as we are in various aspects of life, and bringing them up with us and helping them. We have that same obligation. That's why when you find the right mentors that click, it's not effort for them. There's no resistance. They understand that they're giving back just as someone gave to them. It's a never-ending cycle of abundance of knowledge being passed from, basically generation to generation, not necessarily linked to your family. That's what's great.
Mm-hmm. So, what are some of the qualities that you personally look for in mentors? Do you have specialty mentors? Like in sports, you have a kicking coach, a linebacker coach, and then a head coach who oversees everything. Or do you pretty much have a specific head coach who kind of guides you through all the phases for a specific season of your life? Like where are you at with the coaching process in terms of what you seek in mentorship right now?
Yeah, I definitely have specialty coaches for various aspects. I mean, my priest who I go to on religious and spiritual issues is not, the same person per se that maybe guides me in marketing. What is consistent amongst all of my mentors and coaches is the focus on the who, not the what. What I mean by that is, who they became when they grew up, not what they became. It's not matter if they became a marketing coach or a priest or whatever, but the type of person they are. So I always look for, people of the highest integrity that are completely ethical and transparent. I'm not looking for saints. Everybody has, made mistakes, but again, it's a process. We're evolving. So I look for quality people from the inside who happen to specialize in XYZ area.
Right on.
That's so interesting because as we started diving more into coaching, Durs and I were talking, because I just hired my first business coach, and we were talking about just standard education where somebody came up to me and they said, I paid $10,000 for my business coach. And to me, I looked at that investment and said, look what because you mentioned they've already been to that point of success where I see, okay, this is the next level I want to reach.
Yeah.
But then you have people who are doing the traditional school system and they look at that and they came up and said, that's expensive for paying for a coach. But they fail to look inside and say, I'm paying 3 times as much as you are in a semester to get information that I may not use in my life. How do you sort of structure your thought process and teach people around you that mentorship is the way to go and coaching is the right step if you want to level up in every aspect of your life, whether it's business or personal?
Yeah, I mean, just to real quickly touch on the education piece, I mean, I'm in no way, anti-education. I've got 9 years of post-high school, 4 years undergrad with economics, another year with science, and then 4 years of chiropractic college, and $200,000 in student loan debt, which, thank God I just paid off a few months ago.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, thank you. Which is a huge burden lifted off your shoulders. So, and not to mention the opportunity cost of those 9 years. What could I have been doing instead of in school for those 9 years? But again, everything happens for a reason. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have that background. Now, when I have my discussions with my kids, they're very aware of, the cost of school, what they can get from free podcasts like this one, from a $10 or $12 book, right? From a $2,000 weekend seminar, from a $10, $20, $30,000 coach, right? Exponential value, So you're right. I think it's this weird little hang up sometimes that, people have that, are quote unquote educated from the traditional sense. Like, how could you spend that much on this? You're like, well, what are you talking about? You spent 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 9 years of your life, and how much did that cost?
Right.
I have literally learned more, from my coaches and mentors and weekend seminars and podcasts and books, and, millions of dollars worth of education for a fraction of the cost. So, there's no harm in doing both. I mean, I don't have a hang up with going to college if that's what you're called to do. There's a lot of benefit from networking and the social benefits and that kind of thing. But as far as, real education and implementing things, that's what you're going to get from working in a business. I'll take someone with 4 years of experience in an industry over a 4-year degree over that subject matter any day of the week. And those are the type of people, we hire. We've got a lot of educated people here, but we've got people educated with street smarts, and that's what really matters.
Right. Well, I think that where the rubber meets the road in terms of formal education versus the School of Hard Knocks seminars, podcasts, and experiential education is, number one, what you stand to gain. In the formal education system, you're learning a lot of the technical, but not a lot of not necessarily a lot of the application of that knowledge. On the other side, when it comes to the investment of a mentor and stuff like that, where I see the immediate difference is when you invest in a coach or a mentor, you're given immediate action steps to implement, and it's really up to you how fast you get that return on investment. Whereas in the traditional education system, and I'm speaking from a mentorship standpoint, as we take undergrads in exercise and wellness through our internship program at CrossFit PHX. And so that, if I have them write a program, they can, technically show me how to turn a housewife into a supermodel. But then we step out on the floor and I'm like, all right, I need you to tell me what's wrong with their squat and how to fix it. And they look at me like a deer in the headlights,
right.
And that's where the rubber meets the road. Your true education, from what I found years and years later, post-master's degree and all that good stuff. And like you said, it took that to get me here. So I definitely appreciate that education comes from the application, and then, like you said, teaching those behind you and helping them progress past so they don't have to necessarily stumble over the same hurdles that you did.
Yeah, I mean, where the rubber meets the road in both the traditional education sense and what we'll call alternative or what basically everyone's doing today is really an implementation. I mean, I have a couple acquaintances that have listened to every podcast of significance there is, have read every book of significance there is, could quote in and out of everything that they should do, but two people in particular that I'm thinking about, they never take any action. They're like, that's why lawyers and CPAs tend to make horrible entrepreneurs, because they overanalyze and never take action. So you could be in that boat and be privy to kind of the new way of learning. So where the rubber meets the road is, Zuckerberg was in, traditional college until, he took action, and that action ended up making him drop out, from what I understand. But still, he took action. You can take action in a traditional system or an alternative system. The nice thing is with the new system, it's a lot cheaper, in both time and money, typically. You're getting immediate feedback. So if you could take action, like you said, on something today and get results tomorrow. I mean, that's a great thing about the new media for testing ideas and advertising and seeing if something's going to get traction or not. So,
Do you think that society is in line with that not necessarily the traditional education system is bound to crumble, but do you think that inevitably it's going to have to revamp its structure to keep up with the alternative side?
Yeah, I mean, it's all economics, People are in California out here are freaking out about, the environment. We're all going to be underwater here in a few years. And I said, look, the economics drive everything. They'll always drive everything. As soon as it's cheaper to have alternative energy than fossil fuel, guess what? We all switch to alternative energy. It's already happening. So, with less people theoretically, enrolling in a traditional sense and getting alternative educations for cheaper, it's a matter of time before, look, information is free. What's in the setting, the traditional college setting providing you? It's providing you with information. Well, information is free now. What can you learn in that classroom that you couldn't learn for free with a YouTube video or lecture or, online? It's just, so the model has to change. I think the economics are going to drive it to change from basic supply and demand. And, there'll still be demand for, I could take a paid piece of content and the exact same free piece of content. I'm always going to get better results on the paid piece, even when the information is identical, because when people pay for something, psychologically they've already made this first step in committing to it. So there's going to be some type of a hybrid model that evolves out of all this that's much more reasonable from a fee base that doesn't make people indentured servants to pay off their student loans like I was for the rest of their life. I mean, if it wasn't for Life Aid, I'd still be paying on these student loans till I was 60 years old at $1,000 a month. You believe that? I mean, it's ridiculous.
That's crazy. And what's so interesting, going back to you were talking about the paid advertisement versus the free advertisement and getting more value, or the free content versus the paid content. Talking in a like a mastermind sense, I imagine you go to several masterminds a year. Am I correct?
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah. So do you find it more beneficial, or do you find that you surround yourself with more high-level thinkers that pay to go to seminars rather than to come one or open serve all, like a free seminar? Have you found more value in paying for those?
Yeah, so look, when I was a chiropractor, I was very influential, I guess, in the community and kind of worked on the who's who. And I went to all the Chamber of Commerce and Exchange Club and all of those things that a lot of small business owners go to, right? Here's the problem with that setting. You poll the 50 people in a Chamber of Commerce room, say, hey, raise your hand right now if you're here to sell something. All 50 people put their hand up. And then ask the next question, who's here to buy something? Nobody puts their hand up. Talk about an issue with supply and demand, but that's the environment most of us are trying to market in. It's ridiculous, right? So when you're going to a high-level event that people have paid big money to, it's a much different attitude and atmosphere. People at that level understand that in order to receive, we must first give. And so they're coming forward with their best practices, what's working. They're not coming from a scarcity mindset. And therefore, the quality of conversation, the quality of deals that happen is on a whole nother level. But unfortunately, you have to screen out, kind of the bottom dwellers to get to the real cream there.
I think that's a very interesting point, because you and I wouldn't have this relationship had it not been for that mastermind that you and I both invested in.
That's right.
When you and I met, I was on the fence as to who you were, your competition, who was going to serve my community best, and I wasn't. Your competition has a lot of people out there doing a lot of door-to-door B2B footwork in and around our community. And but what I found in that mastermind, it allows you to go, instead of going through 3 layers to get things done. You and I had a simple conversation. You told me everything I needed to know about Fit Aid and the value that it brings. But above and beyond the product, knowing you was hands down the differentiator. I got to meet the man, so to speak, the decision maker. And even though you have an extremely quality staff beneath and around you, if I need something to get done right now, because of that mastermind, I can just shoot you a text and it gets done. That's the value of that investment, right? Mm-hmm. Is the networking potential, but at the same time, prior to doing the deal and me purchasing a product from you, we had 2 or 3 discussions about how to make CrossFit PHX better from the customer service standpoint. So you gave me quite a bit before I ever purchased anything from you.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to what we were talking about earlier, and playing the long game. I mean, life is driven by relationships, and sometimes you think that, oh, I'm so far behind, my competitors got twice as many members as me, or they're doing this and they're doing that, and it's easy to get caught up in that jealousy scarcity game. But if you don't get caught up in that and you control your thoughts, and that's the biggest challenge for most of us, is we let our minds control us and we don't control our minds, But if we control our thoughts, recognize, that and change our thought process and focus on delivering value first and foremost, nurturing, these relationships over the long run, then what happens over the long run is a transformation will ultimately take place. And it's one of those truisms. We have to avoid short-term thinking and that short-term mentality, and always focus on nurturing and developing relationships and providing value.
And where's that mindset? Because I really love that you have the abundance mindset, and where does that come from for you? Is it something that you've continued to mature as you've read and grown in your life, or does it come from your childhood?
A little of both, but my childhood, as nurturing I think as it was, I still heard things like money doesn't grow on trees, and so much of that stuff that, I came from a family with 6 brothers and sisters, 7 kids, right? So even though my dad made some decent money, he was in a fee-for-service model, and a lot of kids to feed. I never flew on an airplane until I was went to college. It was the first time. So there was some of that scarcity mindset, I think, growing up, like most kids have, but that's not something I want to pass on to my kids. And I have to be very conscious if I find myself in saying something in a scarcity mindset. Thankfully, I've got, Orion, my business partner, my wife, to call me out, and I encourage people to call me out. But it's been a progress. It's part of that evolution. It comes from books and the right mentors. And I don't know anybody that I would consider successful. And when I say successful, I don't mean, they make a ton of money and they drive a nice car. That may be one aspect of it. But when I say successful, I mean well-rounded in their relationships with, their significant other and their kids, if they have any, with their employees and team members, that their product or service has with their consumer base and community. All of these aspects are factoring in as my definition of success. And I don't know one successful person that does not come from an abundance mindset.
It's true. It's true. Would you say that the people, your inner circle, so to speak, kind of mimics what you look for in mentors in terms of who you surround yourself with on a consistent basis?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I always try to surround myself, or I'm attracted to, people that are at least, one level or multiple levels ahead of me in this, journey of life in at least one aspect of life, right? And so anytime I know that I engage with them, I'm progressing. And again, that's the key. One of the keys, another truism, is keep moving forward. We cannot afford to be stagnant. I remember, talking to my priest years ago. I'm Greek Orthodox, and my priest years ago, and he said, the spiritual struggle is like a salmon swimming upstream. As long as it continues to swim upstream, it'll reach its destination, the spawning ground. But even if it takes a short rest and just stops swimming, what happens? The current takes it back the other way. So we always have to be moving. We always have to be struggling, recognizing that, as the book I just read, The Obstacle is the Way. The obstacle is in fact the way. And don't look at these challenges in life from a negative perspective. Look at them as necessary.
Sure. Speaking of books, give us your top 3 as of late, something that a must read for people that are looking to, if not become entrepreneurs, but, live life at the next level. What are your top 3 right now?
Well, the number one I always recommend is Cialdini's book, Dr. Robert Cialdini, Influence. If you haven't read it, it's a must read. There's so much that happens in our personal relationships where we're making unintended withdrawals to the emotional bank account. A quick example is, so I say I help someone move, right, over the weekend. Everyone knows moving's a pain, and lifting furniture, and they call me up on Monday and say, "Oh, Aaron, thank you so much. You're my only friend that showed up. Thank you for helping me move." The worst thing I could say to them would be, "Oh, no problem." because they put me up on a pedestal and I shut it down like, oh, no problem, or I'd do it for anybody, right? So that wasn't the intent of my response to that compliment, but subconsciously I've taken a withdrawal from that bank account instead of a deposit like it should have been made. So I think a lot of human interaction is misinterpreted, especially now that a lot of it is happening away from, one-to-one communication is happening digitally through email and texting and that kind of stuff. So Cialdini's book is a must-read. I really enjoyed Ego is the Enemy this year, which was a good read for me. Always struggling kind of on the spiritual side to not, be driven by pride or overly a sense of accomplishment. Keeping that in check, that was a good one. Ego is the Enemy. And the third, I'm going to give a recommendation because I know it's good. I haven't even read it yet. It's sitting on my desk. Is Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss.
Oh, yeah.
The caliber of the guests he has on the podcast, and that this is a synopsis of all the takeaways. I'm sure it's going to be awesome, and I'm looking forward to it.
Man, Tim Ferriss, any book that he produces, I think, like you said, it's a must-read. And for him to drop tools, I heard that thing is as thick as an encyclopedia.
It is, yeah.
So they said it's more like one of those the books you put on the table, you sit back and you just kick back and read a couple passages a day.
Yeah, I met Tim a couple times and seems like a legit guy, and is really creating a unique tribe. Reminds me a lot of CrossFit actually in a lot of ways, that his tribe and the way his tribe responds. But he's done a great job, and as far as I can see, is a quality human being.
Yeah, we have a couple of people in our circle that are in the process or in that book right now, and not like depicted in the book, but reading it right now. And they whatever the 4-hour work week did for people, this takes that to the next level.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So, but going back to that abundance mentality, what are some of the mechanisms you have in place to keep you in that mindset? Because, especially in the very beginning, when you're just not like that, when you're not an eternal optimist, when you don't feel like the universe is acting in your favor, like how does that become a lifestyle for you?
It's a challenge, and it's a constant challenge. I mentioned head talk, specifically negative head talk. We all have to deal with that from previous programming. You're not good enough. You're whatever it is. That head talk. In order to come from an abundance mindset, and you have to change the head talk. Mm-hmm. So step one is not just wishing it to go away, because we all know that's not the way it works, but recognizing it. When it's happening in your head, you go, I know what you're doing. I've heard this story before, and kind of laughing at it, recognizing and laughing at it, discounting it, going, that's not accurate. That's not accurate. I'm not going to let myself think like that. And you start catching it frequently enough, then all of a sudden you kind of you stop that negative head talk, and then you can start replacing it. It's like, a vacuum is created. Now you can start replacing it with abundance. And then you start to act on that. Even though you may not totally believe it, you start to act with an abundance mindset. Maybe I leave a 25% tip instead of 20%, right? I'm like, okay. And I still am okay. I still made my bills the next month. So start to have those different practices, and with that over time, I think the thought process can evolve, and you start coming at things from a more abundance perspective. But you got to start with your thoughts.
Mm. And sort of to keep that mindset of your thoughts, creating your reality, what are some daily practices or rituals that you do from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep that keep you going, keep you consistent?
Yeah, I like this one. Some of it I took from my buddy Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning book, and I pieced it together from various sources. But I'll typically wake up around 6 a.m. and immediately I'll drink a full glass of water, and then I'll spend 5 minutes and fill out the 5-minute journal, which I found to be an excellent tool. And basically the 5-minute journal, you're writing down 3 things that you're grateful for every day, 3 things that would make today great, and then 1 self-affirmation. Okay, and it's really a great mindset tool to get you appreciating not only the big things that are happening, but a lot of the little things, and then setting your intention for the day, which helps manifest itself. After that, I'll take a shower, and at the end of my shower, I'll do a full 30 breath cycle of Wim Hof breathing. I only do 1 cycle because I do it in the shower, and in case I got lightheaded or passed out, I don't want to crash through the bathroom. But I'll do Wim Hof breathing. I'll hold my breath for about a minute, and then when I'm getting towards the tail end of my breath hold, I'll slam the hot water off, and I'll cold plunge for about 30 seconds to a minute. That's kind of on the Wim Hof side of things. Then I'll usually, make a fresh greens smoothie with some of the fruits that I picked from our garden over the year and from our orchard, and start the day off with my commute in. I drive along the ocean after I drop my son off, and I'm usually listening to podcast or Audible, and then I get to the office and kind of review my journal that I take with me everywhere, and kind of align that with my intentions I set in the morning and get to work.
That's awesome, man. Have you participated, and I'm starting to ask everybody this question because I just find it so phenomenal, and Mike Bledsoe actually reintroduced me to the perfect day exercise. Have you done that yet, or do you do it regularly?
I have done it. I've done it several times. I don't do it regularly, but it is a phenomenal exercise. I mean, we just had our last team meeting of the year this morning with our entire team, and one thing we do that we've done all quarter, and when we set our quarterly goals, is we write a futuristic kind of State of the Union, and we read it every meeting. And so it goes like, wow, it's the end of 2016 and it's been a fabulous year. At the beginning of the quarter, we had challenges with da-da-da-da-da. And it goes into extreme detail on every aspect of the business. And it's basically a perfect day for each quarter. And it's amazing how much of that, like every quarter we do it, we hit 95% of the goals that are basically outlined in that document. So it's powerful, putting words on paper, visualizing that coming true, and and taking consistent steps over time on a daily basis to get you closer and closer to those goals.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I know you're busy and you got a lot going on, so I want to leave you with 2 questions, and I want you to answer them on any level, mental, physical, spiritual, what have you. But give us one thing that you do each and every day to feed yourself, kind of get the ball rolling and put you in the right mindset for your intention for the day. And then give us something that you do each and every day to fuel you and keep that fire burning into the wee hours of the night before you turn it off and shut your eyes at night.
Really a tool to get me going. If you haven't looked into the Wim Hof breathing, I'd highly recommend your audience do so. It's when I do the Wim Hof and then do the cold plunge, it's very euphoric. It's like, I forgot to mention, I also do like the bulletproof coffee in the morning. I set aside 5 minutes of prayer every morning and meditation. But that Wim Hof breathing, really just has been a game changer for me and just kind of jumpstart my day. Some days you're like, oh, I'm dragging a little bit, or you have your cup of coffee and it doesn't quite feel like it's kicked in, or that mental fog. That really just starts my day off where I feel very in the zone and alert. And then to wind down my day, I live up in the mountains in Santa Cruz Mountains, off the grid. I don't have PG&E tie-in. I got my own well, and just coming home and looking up at the stars and breathing the clean air and really resetting myself that, I'm very thankful for everything that I have in my life, and just coming back from Thailand and just seeing the some of the poverty and the garbage everywhere, and just being thankful, like what a great, clean, beautiful environment I get to live in.
That's awesome, man. Really love your mindset and appreciate your time today. Where can the community go and support anything that you're doing personally in your business, any initiatives that you have going? And we'll link this all up in the show notes, but where can we go support you and anything that you have going?
Yeah, appreciate it. All my personal social handles are just my name, AARONHINDE, Aaron Hinde. And then, if you haven't checked out our website, please do so, lifeaid@bevco.com. And, we're really rolling out this year into a lot of conventional channels. So we'll be in all the Whole Foods in April, all the Sprouts by March, 5 divisions of Safeway. And so if you can't find us at your local box, please, support us in the retail environment. Check us out on social media. We have individual social handles for all of our lines. And on social media, real quick, if you've got a business, always focus on value-added content first and foremost, and pitching should be secondary. I'd recommend a 90-10 or 95-5 percentage value-added content to pitching. Too many businesses out there just pitch without adding value first.
That's beautiful, man. Hey, we really appreciate you being with us today. Like we said when we opened the show, man, we value your friendship and your time, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, Mike, Jeff, appreciate it, you guys.
Definitely. For those of you guys listening, make sure you support all of that Aaron has going on with Fit Aid and Life Aid. Big ups to the progress that you're blasting into 2017 with. And as always, we truly appreciate you exposing the elephant with us. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of your journey, as we're ever thankful for being a part of yours. And until next time, guys, feed me, fuel me.
And that'll do it for today's episode with our special guest, Aaron Hinde. If you want to check out everything Aaron has going and his company, Life Aid Bevco, go check out the full show notes at feedmefuelme.com. Also, be sure to connect with us on social media, including Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter at feedmefuelme. We would love to hear from each and every one of you. We're excited to announce the Feed Me Fuel Me Summit on July 10th, 2017 in Sedona, Arizona. Our keynote speaker will be Forrest Lustos. If you haven't had a chance to hear Forrest's story yet, be sure to listen to his episode number 19, Mastering the Superficial and Becoming Exceptional. It's guaranteed to fire you up and make you take action. We've released event details on the website and will continue to update them in the coming weeks. Go to feedmefuelme.com, click on the link 2017 Summit, buy your ticket, and we'll see you there. If you found this episode inspiring in any way, please rate, comment, share, and subscribe so we can continue on this journey together. Also, be sure to share it with your friends and family on social media, including Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter, or any other social platforms that you use. We really appreciate you spending your time with us today and allowing us to join you on your journey. We would love to hear your feedback on this episode, as well as guests and topics for future episodes. To end this episode, we would love to leave you with a quote by Jim Rohn. Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. Thank you again for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode.